The trial of beasts, an omen from the past in the shadowy corners of medieval Europe. A peculiar phenomenon, unfolded animals were not just beasts of burden or food, but potential criminals. Sometimes. Hundreds of animal trials were conducted with legal formality. Judges, lawyers, even public executioners. The answer lies in a strange mixture of theology, justice, and fear. These weren't isolated events. Why would a society so steeped in religion and superstition deem a pig worthy of a trial? In this tale, you'll witness the unbelievable. Livestock interrogated like murderers. Sex excommunicated like heretics. And justice carried out with blade and rope. This isn't fantasy, it's documented history. Chronicles, court records, and sketches confirm these animal trials were very real and very serious. To kill a child, a pig had to possess malice, and thus was treated as moral agent. The line between man and beast was not as firm in the 13th and 14th centuries. We will unravel these chilling yet absurd tales, each one a mirror reflecting the fears and beliefs of a forgotten age. Defense attorneys argued for mice and beetles with eloquence and conviction. Trials were public events. Townsfolk gathered to watch a blend of justice and spectacle. The gallows creaked not only for men, but for creatures. A scribe takes his place. Air is cold, but charged with judgment. Some weep. Others smile. Justice, they say, will be served for all creatures. Some trials lasted days, as though it wore a name and bore a soul. The minds of those people. These animals had souls, intentions, and could sin. Their punishment or forgiveness had cosmic consequences. Open your mind. This is the trial of the beasts. In this 20-scene journey, our story begins in a small French village in 1386. A young child lies dead, and the villagers have already found the culprit, a pig. The animal is chained and led through the town square to await trial. The people watch not with horror but expectation, robes trailing behind him like shadows. He doesn't flinch at the sight of the accused, is routine. The priest blesses the courtroom. The judge enters. A pig will be tried for murder, the crowd murmurs. This is no metaphor, it's law, written and witnessed. You are about to enter a world that feels like myth but was once truth. Suspend disbelief, and it all begins. With a hoofprint in the snow, in the darkened courts of medieval villages, animals awaited their fate, bound and helpless. The villagers whispered nervously about the strange and grim trials about to unfold. Rabbits accused of crop destruction faced stern judges in black robes. Pigs brought before the court often bore the brunt of farmers' frustrations. The concept of animal guilt baffled many, yet the law demanded punishment. Sometimes the animals were represented by appointed human advocates. Trials could last hours or days, as witnesses from the village gave their testimonies. The tension was palpable. The verdict could mean death or freedom. Some animals were accused of witchcraft or possession by evil spirits. The punishments varied: exile, fines, or in extreme cases, execution. A pig once was sentenced to be hanged for attacking a child. But some trials ended in surprising mercy from the judges. The proceedings reflected society's complex relationship with nature and law. These trials often blurred the lines between superstition and justice. The accused animals never understood the gravity of their situation. Observers often debated if these trials were for real or mere spectacle. Yet the law was enforced strictly, and sentences carried out without mercy. These events left a lasting mark on folklore and law. The question remains: what drove humans to judge animals so harshly? This chapter of history reveals the intertwining of fear, justice, and belief. The morning sun cast long shadows over the village square as the accused animals were led in chains. A black cat sat motionless, accused of bringing misfortune to the harvest. The judge's gavel struck sharply, signaling the start of the solemn proceedings. Witnesses stepped forward nervously, recounting tales of damage and suspicion. Some villagers claimed to have seen the animals acting strangely at night. The defense advocate argued that animals lacked intent and reason, yet superstition clouded reason and fear gripped the courtroom. The black cat's green eyes glowed eerily in the dim light. The jury whispered among themselves, torn between mercy and law. Finally, the verdict was delivered. Guilty of witchcraft and malice. The crowd gasped, some in horror, others in grim acceptance. Preparations for punishment began immediately after the ruling. The black cat was to be banished beyond the village borders. Yet some villagers secretly left food to ease the cat's journey. This trial deepened the village's fear of dark omens and magic. Stories spread quickly, warning others of the black cat's curse. The law's power over both man and beast was absolute and unquestioned. Yet in secret, some questioned the fairness of these judgments. The village was forever changed by the harshness of this trial. The legacy of fear and superstition lingered long after the court adjourned. The courtroom filled once again as a sow was brought before the magistrates, accused of damaging the communal grain stores. Her pink snout twitched nervously as the farmers presented their evidence. Witnesses described how the sow had been seen rooting through freshly harvested grain. The judge listened intently, weighing the testimonies with furrowed brows. A village elder reminded the court of past incidents involving similar accusations. The sow's appointed advocate pleaded that animals acted on instinct, not malice. Some villagers scoffed, believing the sow was a deliberate thief. Outside, children watched the trial with wide eyes, unsure of what to believe. The court ordered the sow to be confined until the final judgment. Rumors spread that the sow's behavior was influenced by a mysterious curse. The community's fear of supernatural influence grew with each trial. Meanwhile, the village priest preached about sin and penance, linking animals to evil. The sow's fate symbolized the fragile balance between order and chaos. As the sun set, villagers debated if justice truly prevailed in these trials. Some believed animals were scapegoats for human fears and failures. The sow's trial highlighted the tension between superstition and rationality. Despite doubts, the law's harsh grip remained unyielding. The sow awaited her sentence, uncertain of her fate. This trial marked another chapter in the village's strange legal traditions. The legacy of these trials continued to haunt the village for generations. Rumors had spread that a goat had been seen wandering near the church grounds at midnight, suspicious and alone. The villagers whispered that the goat was a familiar spirit serving the devil. The magistrates summoned the goat for trial, drawing a crowd hungry for justice. The goat's sharp eyes scanned the room, calm yet alert. Accusers described the goat's strange behavior as proof of witchcraft. The goat's advocate argued that animals acted without understanding human laws. Some villagers believed the trial was a way to channel fear of the unknown. The courtroom echoed with voices debating the nature of evil. Evidence was thin, yet superstition fueled harsh accusations. The goat stood still as the judge deliberated, waiting for a verdict. A hush fell over the crowd when the sentence was read aloud. The goat was condemned to exile, forced to roam the wild forever. Villagers felt relief mixed with lingering unease. Some secretly doubted the justice of condemning an innocent creature. The trial reinforced the village's fragile grasp on control. Darkness outside the courthouse deepened as fear took root in hearts. Tales of the goat's curse spread, feeding the villagers' imaginations. The law demanded punishment even when proof was scarce. This trial became another thread in the tapestry of superstition. The goat's exile marked a grim reminder of the times. A large black dog was dragged into the court, accused of attacking a child in the marketplace. The mother of the child wept openly, demanding justice for her son. Witnesses testified to the dog's aggressive behavior in recent weeks. The dog's advocate insisted the animal had been provoked and was acting defensively. The judge consulted ancient laws concerning animal attacks and liability. The community was divided. Some demanded harsh punishment, others called for mercy. Children avoided the marketplace, fearing another attack. The dog looked confused, sensing the tension but not understanding the accusations. The trial revealed the fragile balance between justice and fear in the village. After long deliberation, the judge sentenced the dog to death. Preparations began for the grim execution outside the village walls. The dog was led away with solemn faces watching in silence. Some villagers whispered prayers for the dog's soul. The execution was a harsh reminder of the village's laws, yet questions lingered about the fairness of the verdict. The child recovered, but the village's fear remained. The trial became a story told to caution children about dangers. The dog's death symbolized the unforgiving nature of justice then. The villagers continued their uneasy coexistence with nature and law. This grim episode echoed through the village's collective memory. A flock of geese was summoned before the court, accused of disturbing the peace at dawn. Early risers complained that the geese's honking disrupted their prayers and rest. The judge listened patiently to the complaints, his face stern and unreadable. The advocate argued that geese naturally guarded their territory and made noise. Some villagers insisted that the geese were intentionally disruptive, fueled by malice. The court debated the fine line between natural behavior and social order. The geese seemed oblivious to the tension surrounding them. Witnesses testified to repeated disturbances during early mornings. The judge contemplated whether to impose a fine or exile. Children giggled quietly at the commotion, amused by the noisy geese. The verdict was a small fine on the geese's owner to maintain peace. The owner promised to keep the geese quiet during the early hours. The trial highlighted the challenge of balancing human needs with nature's rhythms. The geese continued their daily routine, now under watchful eyes. The villagers slowly adapted to the sounds of nature mingling with their lives. The case was mild compared to others, but reflected societal order's importance. It served as a reminder that even animals were subject to human laws. The villagers' relationship with their environment remained complicated. Geese's noisy mornings became part of village folklore and daily life. This trial showed that justice sometimes aimed for compromise rather than punishment. One harsh winter, a cat was accused of spreading disease among the livestock. Farmers claimed the cat's presence brought pestilence and bad luck. The cat was captured and brought before the grim-faced court. Witnesses recounted how the cat roamed freely among the barns and stables. The advocate argued that cats helped by controlling rodent populations. However, fear and superstition overruled rational defenses. The cat's fate was sealed despite pleas for mercy. The villagers prepared for the grim ritual to follow. The cat was to be expelled from the village limits at dawn. Some villagers left small offerings at the edges of the village to appease spirits. The trial deepened fears of contagion and curses. Tales of the cat's evil deeds spread quickly through the region. Church preached warnings about unclean animals and sin. The cat's exile was both punishment and a ritual cleansing. Despite this, some villagers mourned the loss of a natural pest controller. The law's reach extended even to small creatures believed to threaten community health. The cat's story became a cautionary tale for generations. The trial revealed the era's fragile balance between nature, health, and superstition. The village lived in constant fear of unseen threats, human or animal. This event etched another mark in the village's history of animal. A rooster was accused of waking the village too early, disturbing the peace and daily routines. Complaints flooded the court from sleep-deprived villagers. The rooster strutted confidently in the courtroom, oblivious to the tension. The judge listened carefully to both sides before deliberating. The advocate argued that the rooster's crow was natural and necessary. Villagers insisted on silence during early hours for rest and prayer. The court debated the right balance between nature's call and human needs. Some suggested moving the rooster away from the village center. The judge finally ruled that the rooster must be relocated but not punished. The rooster's owner agreed to keep the bird away from homes. The village accepted the compromise with cautious relief. The trial became a story about coexistence and understanding. The rooster's crowing remained a natural part of village life, albeit distant. The case was mild, but reflected the community's desire for order. It showed how even small disturbances could become legal matters. The villagers' lives were deeply intertwined with the rhythms of nature. This trial reinforced respect for both law and natural cycles. The rooster's story was told for years as a lesson in balance. The village continued to negotiate its relationship with the animal world. This episode highlighted the ongoing struggle between order and nature. A mysterious raven was brought to trial, accused of spying for enemy forces. The villagers believed the bird's sharp eyes carried secrets to their foes. Witnesses testified about the raven's unusual presence near guarded areas. The judge questioned the validity of such accusations without proof. The raven's advocate argued that birds acted on instinct, unaware of human conflicts. Fear and paranoia dominated the courtroom's mood. The verdict declared the raven guilty of espionage, sentencing it to exile. The raven was released far from the village, barred from returning. The villagers hoped to protect their secrets through this symbolic act. Stories of the spy raven grew into local legends. The trial reflected the intertwining of politics and superstition. The raven's fate was a cautionary tale about suspicion and fear. The village remained vigilant against unseen threats. The law extended its reach to protect the community in all ways. The raven's story lived on as a symbol of paranoia and justice. The villagers struggled to balance fear with reason in troubled times. This trial was a vivid example of the era's harsh realities. The raven's exile was both a political and mystical act. The village's legacy of animal trials grew ever more complex. This chapter closed with lingering questions about justice and fear. The village was shaken when a stray horse was accused of trampling newly planted crops. Farmers brought the horse before the court, demanding restitution for their losses. Witnesses testified that the horse had wandered near fields late at night. The advocate argued that the horse was simply following its natural instincts. Some villagers expressed sympathy, believing the horse meant no harm. Others insisted that damages had to be addressed to maintain order. The court debated the appropriate punishment for the animal. Suggestions ranged from fines on the owner to temporary exile for the horse. The horse's owner promised to keep it better controlled in the future. The verdict favored a fine on the owner rather than harm to the animal. Relief spread among those who hoped for a less severe outcome. The trial highlighted the challenges of balancing property rights and animal behavior. It also showed the community's desire to avoid unnecessary cruelty. The horse was returned to its owner under strict conditions. The villagers hoped the incident would not repeat itself. This case added another layer to the village's complex legal traditions. The story of the stray horse was told as a lesson in responsibility. The village continued to wrestle with the intersection of law and nature. The village grew wary as a flock of sheep was accused of destroying fences and gardens. Complaints poured in from multiple households suffering losses. The advocate stressed the importance of livestock management by owners. Some villagers blamed neglect rather than the sheep themselves. The court deliberated on whether to punish the animals or their keepers. The owner admitted some responsibility but pleaded for leniency. The verdict imposed fines on the owner and ordered repair of damages. The sheep were returned under stricter supervision. The trial underscored the responsibilities entwined in animal husbandry. Villagers debated the fairness of punishing animals versus humans. The case deepened the dialogue about justice in their community. The sheep's misadventures became cautionary tales. Owners pledged to prevent further incidents. The village sought balance between care and control. This chapter reflected ongoing struggles with rural life. The flock story was woven into local lore. Justice and mercy remained in delicate equilibrium. The village buzzed with rumors. When a rat was accused of stealing food from the granary, farmers demanded action to protect their stores from further loss. The rat was caught and brought before the court, a symbol of many fears. Witnesses described the damage with frustration and anxiety. The judge considered the evidence carefully. The advocate argued that rats acted on instinct, unaware of human laws. Some villagers called for harsh punishment to deter future theft. Others urged compassion, seeing the rat as a creature driven by survival. The court debated the limits of justice in matters involving vermin. The verdict ordered the rat to be expelled from the village. Pest control measures were increased following the trial. The case illustrated the village's struggle with threats both large and small. Villagers shared tales warning of the rat's cunning. The rat became a figure in local folklore about greed and punishment. The trial raised questions about human dominion over nature. The community balanced fear with necessity. Protective rituals were performed to safeguard the harvest. The rat's fate was a small but telling piece of village history. The story was passed down as a lesson in vigilance. The village's bond with its environment remained uneasy and complex. As spring blossomed, a pair of doves were accused of disrupting a sacred ritual. Some villagers supported the advocate's view, seeing the birds as harmless. Others felt order and respect required intervention. The court decided on a mild reprimand rather than punishment. The doves were released with a warning to their caretakers. The trial became a story about respect for both nature and tradition. Villagers reflected on balancing spirituality and daily life. The birds resumed their place in the village with newfound caution. The case highlighted the community's struggle with coexistence. The dove's story was told alongside tales of law and custom. The village continued to negotiate boundaries between man and nature. This episode added a softer note to the history of trials. The symbolism of the doves endured through generations. The villagers learned lessons in tolerance and understanding. The village was thrown into turmoil when a fox was accused of stealing chickens from local farms. Farmers brought the fox before the court, demanding swift justice. The fox was caught in a trap and presented as evidence. Witnesses recounted sightings of the sly animal near hen houses. The judge listened to heated arguments on both sides. The advocate argued that the fox was simply acting on instinct to survive. Many villagers sympathized but feared for their livelihoods. The court weighed the need for protection against compassion for the wild. The verdict sentenced the fox to exile beyond the village boundaries. Preparations were made to release the fox into the deep forest. Some villagers left offerings to appease the spirit of the fox. The trial fueled ongoing tensions between humans and wildlife. Stories of the fox's cunning spread throughout the region. The fox became a symbol of the wild's intrusion into human life. The community struggled to reconcile survival with respect for nature. The trial underscored the fragile balance between fear and understanding. Villagers debated the ethics of punishing animals for natural behavior. The fox's fate was sealed, but its legend lived on. This chapter added drama to the village's history of animal trials. The village remained vigilant, wary of nature's unpredictable forces. A swarm of bees was accused of causing harm by stinging villagers and damaging crops. The community gathered to decide the fate of the buzzing offenders. Beekeepers defended the bees, explaining their vital role in pollination. Witnesses told stories of painful stings and ruined harvests. The judge struggled to balance the benefits and dangers of the bees. Some villagers advocated for the destruction of the hives. Others urged caution, warning of ecological consequences. The court ordered the relocation of the hives away from populated areas. The beekeepers promised stricter management to prevent further incidents. The verdict reflected a compromise between fear and reason. The trial highlighted the community's reliance on and fear of nature's power. Stories spread of the bees' persistence and their importance to life. The villagers learned lessons in coexistence and stewardship. The bees continued their work, cautiously monitored by humans. The case became a symbol of fragile harmony in the village. The law adapted to accommodate both human safety and nature's needs. This episode brought new understanding to the village's evolving justice. The bees' story buzzed through village tales and wisdom. The trial underscored the challenges of balancing progress and tradition. The village looked toward a future of uneasy but necessary partnership. A donkey was accused of refusing to carry heavy loads, disrupting trade routes. Merchants brought the donkey before the court, frustrated by delays. The donkey stood stubbornly, uncomprehending of the accusations. Witnesses testified about the animal's unwillingness to cooperate. The judge considered the practical needs of commerce and the animal's welfare. Advocates argued that the donkey's fatigue warranted compassion. Some merchants demanded punishment to set an example. The court debated the balance between economic demands and humane treatment. The verdict ordered the donkey to rest and allowed a temporary reprieve. Merchants were instructed to ensure proper care to prevent future issues. The case highlighted early awareness of animal well-being. Villagers discussed the importance of patience and understanding. The donkey's story became a lesson in empathy, redeemed with renewed caution for animal health. The trial reflected evolving attitudes toward animals as laborers. Community members learned to balance productivity and kindness. The donkey's reprieve was celebrated quietly among sympathizers. This chapter added depth to the village's legal and moral fabric. The village looked forward to more humane treatment of animals. The story of the stubborn donkey was passed down as wisdom. A wild boar was blamed for damaging fences and crops along the village outskirts. Farmers brought the boar before the court, demanding it be dealt with harshly. The boar was captured after a difficult hunt and presented to the magistrates. Witnesses described the destruction and fear caused by the animal. The judge weighed the community's safety against the boar's natural behavior. The advocate argued that the boar was simply defending its territory. Many villagers called for the boar's execution to protect their livelihoods. The court debated the necessity and morality of such punishment. The verdict sentenced the boar to death to restore peace. Preparations were made for a public execution outside the village. The boar's death was meant to serve as a warning to other wild animals. Some villagers mourned the loss of the wild creature. The trial reflected the harsh realities of rural life and survival. Stories of the boar's trial became part of local folklore. The village continued to struggle with the boundaries between wild and tame. The case highlighted tensions between nature's freedom and human control. Villagers remained vigilant for future threats from the wilderness. The trial marked another chapter in the history of animal justice. The community learned the costs of maintaining order. The story of the wild boar was retold for generations as a lesson in balance. The trials of animals in the village had woven a complex tapestry of fear, justice, and superstition. Villagers grappled with balancing the natural world and human order. Some questioned the fairness of punishing creatures who could not comprehend laws. The legacy of these trials echoed in stories passed down through generations. Fear of the unknown often drove harsh judgments and cruel punishments, yet moments of mercy and reason occasionally prevailed amidst the fear. The village's relationship with animals reflected broader human struggles with power and control. As time passed, the harshness of these practices slowly softened. New generations sought understanding rather than punishment. The tales of animal trials became lessons in empathy and coexistence. The community learned the importance of compassion alongside law. Superstition gradually gave way to more enlightened views of nature. The village grew aware of the delicate balance between humanity and the animal world. These stories served as reminders of a turbulent past. They urged future generations to seek harmony over fear. The animals, once defendants in strange courts, were now seen as part of the village fabric. The trials remained a testament to the evolution of justice. The village's history was forever marked by these curious legal battles. Ultimately, the past taught valuable lessons about justice, fear, and coexistence. The legacy of the animal trials lived on, shaping the village's future in profound ways.